Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Cutting Through the Bullshit. I am your host, Dr. Stephanie Snyder, and I am a high performance mentor. Through my unique blend of strategy, mindset, and intuition, I help men and women to cut through the BS in order to create the life and business they desire. So, this is not my normal day that I'm recording things. And I'm feeling a little bit more tired today. I was up later than normal last night, and gave myself a whole bunch of grace this morning, got the kids ready to go to school, and I put myself back to bed. But just how today went. And there were topics that I was going to talk about today, but I'm not feeling pulled to talk about this today. And so today we're going to dive into learning how to coach yourself. I was on a call like an hour ago with a mindset coach, which you're like, okay, Steph, isn't that what you do? And I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. I do a lot of the mindset work, but to me, it's always interesting to have another perspective. I don't think you can ever have too many let me rephrase that. When you're open to it, it's nice to have another perspective. And so I'm going to be honest. I wouldn't pick this person. We were on the call for about 30 minutes, and I think he talked for 27 of them. And it was weird. It was weird. So, nevertheless, it is what it is, right? So let's just move on and get what we can from it and then just continue. Anyways, so when it comes to coaching yourself, I think this is an incredibly invaluable skill, right? Being able to coach yourself through a situation, because countless reasons. So many reasons why it would be important to coach yourself. But the biggest thing that you have to do in order to coach yourself through it, right? Because you're seeing a particular perspective, and if you're trying to change something, you need to see a different perspective. And so you almost have to put on different glasses, different hats, be a different version of you, right? And if that's confusing to you, we may not need to go much further, right? Like if you can't, no, you know what? We're going to stop. Let's do this. You talk to yourself already. Yes. Okay. So take control of that conversation, and that is how you coach yourself. Okay. So, prime example. I remember when it became acutely aware to me that I was being incredibly mean to myself in my head, right? And I remember I was walking up the steps right here to my office, and I had a box of push pins, and I was trying to put them in a clear container, and the clear container had a clear cover, and I went to dump the push pins into the container, and I didn't take the cover off because it was clear. It just wasn't there, right? And the push pins went everywhere. And I immediately said to myself, you are such an idiot, Steph. And I thought, oh no, that's mean. We're not going to do that. We're not going to call myself stupid because I made a mistake, right? Like, I'm going to give myself some grace. And so it was in that moment that I became, again, acutely aware of the internal dialogue that was being nasty, right? Now, and I've talked about this before on the podcast, there are lots of different dialogues that happen, and I have this ability to channel in different people's energy and information, where I can source information from a mentor in a conversation that I have in my head. And my husband thinks that I'm crazy, but I can have full dialogues with multiple people in my head when I sit back and watch it happen, right? There was a book that I was reading one time. I don't know if this was the book, but there is a good book called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. Is that what it is? By Debbie Ford? I think that's what it's called. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. I can't see it up there right now. But I think that's what it's called. The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Debbie Ford. And she walks you through this exercise where you meet all these different personalities of yourself on a bus. And you sit down and you have a conversation with each one of these personalities or emotions, essentially. And you meet them. You find out, what their benefit is for you and these kinds of things. And I really latched onto that because it's a great way to actually process things. I've gotten very good at coaching myself, but I think it's an important skill that not a lot of people learn. And I'm noticing that while I'm really good at it, I haven't taught my kids to be really good at it. And so that is one thing that I'm working on. And so the very first step here is creating awareness around that dialogue. So what are the things that you're actually telling yourself? And I say this to my older two specifically, because we do a lot of this work. I'll say specifically to them, if it's not something that you would say to your baby sister, you're not allowed to say it to yourself. Or if it's not something that you would say to your best friend or to your mother, right, then you're not allowed to say it to yourself. And it really just kind of causes you to think again about what it is that you're telling yourself, because that begins to shape our reality. And so if you are telling yourself that you're stupid because you made a mistake, chances are you're going to just beat yourself up more and more and more and more. But when you can give yourself the grace and go, okay, yeah, we screwed up, made a mistake, let's learn from it, you have the ability to actually grow and change, right? Because the thing is here, if you don't ever see another perspective, if you're never open to doing things differently, your life will never change. You will simply become more of what you are. And if you're not happy with where you are, you're just going to perpetuate where you are. You really have to start to source things from the future version of you, and really start to make decisions there, right? So I'm going to give you a prime example. Okay. So I was feeling very fatigued. The last week or so, I've been getting these headaches right here in the middle of my head. And I pinpointed them that they are actually related to me overdoing it. And my body's like, oh, okay, you're not going to stop? Fine, we're going to give you a headache and force you to sit down. Got it, noted, right? I'm typically pretty good at giving myself the space to do that, but for whatever reason, the last few weeks, I've just been kind of burning the candle at both ends and haven't really stopped to recharge myself. And so my body's saying, hey, we need to stop. Here's a headache, take a seat, chill out, right? And so I was coaching myself through that the other day because I really didn't want to sit. There was stuff that I wanted to get done, but my body was telling me I needed the rest. And so this morning when I went back to bed, there was a little voice in my head that was like, you can't afford to lay in bed for another couple of hours. There's a whole bunch of stuff to do. And I had to coach myself through that and say, you know what? It's okay. The stuff that's on my to-do list, when I sit down to do it, is really not going to take me that long. It's probably going to take me a couple hours max today. That I do actually have the time to lay here in bed and just lay here in bed and be. And I had to coach myself through it because there was the little Energizer bunny in me that was saying, no, you can't sit still. That won't be a thing that can happen today. And so it's almost like stepping outside of yourself, is how I tend to look at it. So I will legitimately visualize little Stephanie, like 5-7-year-old version of me, who is emotionally immature and a child, and have a conversation with her when I feel my emotions are getting out of control, right? if I'm feeling like if I'm not feeling like I'm loved, if I'm, not feeling like I'm seen, I'll literally have a conversation with this 5-year-old version of me, and I will picture her and I will speak to her like the grandma from Moana. If you haven't seen the movie Moana, go check it out, right? But like, there's a version of me that is that grandma that has all this wisdom. She's a little bit quirky. She dances on the beach, like whatever it is, but she's got this wisdom and she's got this way of speaking to my 5-year-old version of me that calms her down and says, oh, okay, right? Like, you really do love me. Let's give myself some love here. And then we can move on. And so there's a teenage version of me. There is the really annoying version of me that they have different names, right? And so it's these different emotions that I can name and have a conversation with. And sometimes it's not even all of this can happen within a couple of seconds. And then I can move on and go to the next thing, right? So it's not like I'm sitting here having this drawn out conversation. Now, some of these conversations are a bit more drawn out, where I am actually working through something and I'm journaling it, right? Like, I do a lot of these conversations through journal, because then I can see the conversation and how the questions are unfolding, that is a really powerful tool for me. So the other day, the other day, when I was headed to pick up, I think it must have been Monday afternoon, I was headed to pick up my kids from school, and typically I'll sit there and read, but I didn't feel like I wanted any more information. I felt like I just needed to integrate and process some of the information that's already come through. And so I grabbed my journal and I literally had a full conversation with a different version of me, future version of me, right? As to how I was processing something and integrating it. And it integrated so much faster, and the headaches have been so much less since that integration, because I'm giving myself permission and the boundaries of saying, okay, hey, Steph, you did enough today. Go sit down. Because that is the default, is the overdoing it, right? That is I don't know what you want to call it. My vice, I guess, is the right word for that. And so it's just a matter of walking yourself through this, because truthfully, if you can tap into your intuition, to your internal wisdom, you're going to process things pretty quickly. And you have that ability to also connect in with divine energy in the same token, where you can get that information and move through things with a different perspective. So one of the things that I really enjoy doing, and it really helps me to move through things, is there are different parts of me, and I will literally visualize 2 different versions of me standing on my shoulders, kind of like those cartoons back in the day where Tom and Jerry, right? Tom the cat had these little angel and devil sides of him that would sit on his shoulder and have conversations as to what Tom should do with Jerry, right? I have those same kind of conversations with myself, where my ego will say one thing and my highest version of myself will say another thing, and they will literally have conversations around me, and I'll watch it happen. And it's quite interesting. My husband thinks I'm a little bit cray-cray for that, but it's really a powerful thing when you can source these different perspectives and coach yourself through it. I mean, I even use, mentors that I follow on YouTube. And even if I've never paid them, I can tap into what they would say based off of what I have heard from them. And then I almost put together like this power team in my mind, and I will tap into the things and have full conversations and move through things and come up with different perspectives. Maybe it's a little out there for you, but I love it. I enjoy it. It's fun for me. It helps me move through things. So if you want to learn how to coach yourself, the very first thing that you need to do is to start to become aware of what it is that you're saying to yourself. Especially when you make a quote unquote mistake, right? When you can get outside of it and be objective as opposed to subjective, right? So objective is outside of yourself, right? There's no additional compound meaning to it, because that's really where we start to trip ourselves up, is something happens and we give it a meaning, and then that meaning makes us feel such and such a way, right? Sometimes things can just happen, but because we are trying to make sense of the thing that happened, we give it a meaning. And sometimes when we assign that meaning to that thing, it creates this compound effect, right? So like this morning, where I didn't have a whole lot of energy, I could have compounded and spiraled and made myself feel really, 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 really bad for laying in bed for a couple hours this morning. Because I could have compounded the fact that I was tired. But instead, I was like, you know what? I'm tired. It's okay that I'm tired. We're just going to lay in bed a little bit. There's no crisis today. No one's going to die if I don't check my email until noontime. It will be fine, right? And I love that I have the ability and the flexibility to do that. Super grateful for it, right? But the very first thing here is, right, like, you've got to create that awareness around the internal dialogue. What are you saying to yourself? And this is something that I've been working with my son on in his golf game, because I can visibly watch him start to spiral because of the internal dialogue that he's saying. And so I've been teaching him to notice it, create the awareness over what's coming through, and not attach an emotion to it, right? So like if he has a bad shot, that bad shot doesn't mean that he's a bad golfer. It just means it was a bad shot. And so how can we focus on the next one, right? This is something that I do a lot when I am working out and training for things, right? If it's a bad workout, right? There's no such thing as a bad workout. I don't think there is, right? But quote unquote, if it's a bad workout, okay, what can I learn from it? What worked? What didn't work? What can I do differently? But it's that step of creating the awareness. And even before that, it's the decision to say, you know what? I've got to change my internal dialogue. And then you go, okay, cool. Let's think about let's focus on what it is that we're actually saying to ourselves. And then catch it in the moment and go, I really love that I said that to myself. Is this true? It might feel true, but do I want this to be true? And check in. This builds on a previous podcast episode, where I talked about learning to trust your intuition, right? This is part of that, because if you are not in alignment, which is your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions, then it's like that 3-horse chariot, where your 3 horses are going in opposite directions and you're not getting any traction anywhere. When you can get your thoughts and feelings and actions into alignment, that chariot is 1,000 times more powerful than if your thoughts are in one area, your feelings are in another, and your actions are totally separate. And so creating that alignment is going to be really powerful. So when it comes to coaching yourself, why is it valuable? Well, because it helps you navigate and get to where you actually want to go. Because chances are, if you're listening to this podcast, you don't want to settle for mediocrity, right? If you're listening to a podcast called Cutting Through the Bullsht, then you are here to do bigger and greater things. Because otherwise, you wouldn't waste your time with this. You'd be listening to, I don't know, anything else, right? So I am grateful that you are here. And for those of you on YouTube, if you're a new subscriber, or my podcast new subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. I do appreciate those coming through. I love them. I love to celebrate that. If you have questions about this, you're saying, okay, Steph, like, I know that 2026 is going to be an even more incredible year for me, because 2025 wasn't really where I wanted it to be. Okay, cool. Let's have a conversation, whether it's a single activation session, which are, oh, by the way, incredibly powerful. Or you're like, you know what? I need a bit more support throughout the year, because I've got big things that I want to achieve. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to do it. I can support you through that as well. It's going to be a great year. 2025 isn't over yet. 2025 has been a great year. So much to celebrate so far this year. But as we're gearing up for Thanksgiving next week, I can't believe Thanksgiving is next week. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the things. It's going to be a great end of the year. My energy has already increased through this episode, so I appreciate you being here with me. Okay, so to put a nice little bow on this episode, if you want to learn to coach yourself, the very first thing is you have to, 1, decide that you're going to learn to coach yourself. 2, create awareness around it and give yourself a whole bunch of grace, because you can't do what you don't know. Right? So if you haven't learned how to do it, you can't beat yourself up for it, right? This is something that I'm working through with the money mindset right now, and the way that I relate to money, because I can't beat myself up for the thing that I didn't know about money before. But now that I'm learning something new, I can go, ooh, let me implement that. Let me dive into that strategy a little bit more. Especially as a business owner, now that we own multiple businesses, we're looking at the tax side of these things, and I'm learning so much. And at no point am I saying, wow, Steph, you're stupid that you didn't know these things before. I just didn't know them. And that's okay, because now I'm learning them and it's fun. So, all right, I'm going to sign off here. If you do have any questions, or you're interested in working with me before the end of the year or the beginning of the year, whatever, I'm here, I'm available, happy to help you. Would love to get you to a space before the new year where you can kick off the new year in style. But also, if you want to wait to the new year, I totally get it, for sure. So I am sending you a whole lot of love. If you got any value from this episode, I would love if you would share it on Instagram and tag me. That would be the world to me. And I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, be you, because the world needs more of you. Bye.